Hey, g'day people, it's Matt here from Matt Carve. So today I'm going to carve this, wow, not that, those lips there. So I'm going to show you how I carve those, but I sort of wanted to also show you, hang on a second, I got these ones. I carved these a while ago, and what you'll notice about them is they're quite flat. The profile is quite flat, whereas these are quite sort of like more in the three-dimensional kind of aspect to it. These would be found on an actual sculpture, I guess, but they just like cut out the lips, which is kind of weird. But how do I get sort of like to know the profile and all of that? What I have been doing recently is doing a lot of clay work, and so this is a clay, and I just did a sort of like quick mock-up so I could sort of get the profile of it. And this is what's really good about clay, is you can sort of like play around with it first to see what you like, and you can actually, once you've actually done it, you can actually take measurements of it as well. It's also good for problem solving. I find like I want to carve this little gargoyle, and I'm trying to work out sort of like where his arms are going to go and all of that kind of stuff. But also, you know, so like say if you sort of like tweak the head like that, give him a different look, you know, sort of maybe even more angst, sort of like even twist him even further, sort of like that. It's sort of, you know, and you can sort of like twist it back, no problem. So you can't do that with wood, because once you've done it, it's sort of kind of like over with. So it's really good, this kind of clay, and this is called oil-based clay. It's what a lot of model makers use, especially when they're casting things. So that's what I've used here. Look at his little belly, isn't that cute? So the problem actually, I find, I wouldn't actually recommend carving something like this if you were a beginner, because the face is all about transitions. So your nose going down here, your eye sort of like that bit going around there, and when you carve something by itself, it's very hard to understand this when it's not related to the nose, if you get what I mean. So I've been making this little dude here. I haven't quite finished him, so he's only got one eye, but you can sort of see sort of like that part there. It's very bald at the moment too. So that part there sort of goes up into the nose, whereas this looks very odd because we don't have the nose there or anything like this. And these are female lips, so don't worry about that too much. But I would recommend also, if you're learning, is maybe if you don't want to do the clay, but if you're doing clay, also do this as well. Print out some lips. So you've got lots of details to go on. And they all look different, lips are all different, so but we can gather a few things from the lips, some sort of like commonalities, I would actually say. So let's get on with carving these lips. Okay, so I'm just going to show you quickly how I transcribed the profile of those lips on the clay to the wood, and I've never done this before, but I guess it is sort of like a wood carver or a sculptor. You just got to think about things and work out how to do things on the fly, you know. So I'm just sort of like turning the clay sculpture and moving it along and moving it and penciling in sort of like the line of the profile onto the other piece of wood. Pretty self-explanatory there. And then how do you get the front onto the wood? Well, I took a photo and then transcribed that onto the front of the wood. Like I usually do, I use carbon paper. So what do those lines actually enable me to do? Well, they kind of speed things up, and I can sort of take the outside right down to that line. And so on the face of the wood there are the lips, so it's going to build up to that point. But at the moment I'm just going down right to that profile line. Essentially, these clay kind of sculptures allow you to speed things up when you're actually carving, to problem solve when you're actually making the carving point, because with wood carving you can only remove, you cannot add on. So the benefit with clay is you can always add on if you don't like it, and so you've already sorted out that problem before you come to the wood carving. So you can sort of see what I'm doing there is I'm kind of leaving those lips, even though I'm going to sort of like carve them back. I just want to leave them on for now, so I can sort of like go up to that line, and then what I'll usually do is I'll like carve half of the lips away and leave the other side and try and get that profile right. And so what I can then do is if I carve all the lips out, I would forget where the lines are, but if I only carve half, then I'll get that profile done and then copy the lips from the other side onto the part that I've carved away, and then do the part that I haven't carved away and carve that down. I hope that makes sense. And so as I'm carving the lips out, I'm always looking at the clay sculpture because this gives me a reference on the profile and how it should look. Often we have sort of like just two-dimensional references, but the benefit with a three-dimensional reference is all the problems are sorted out and you can just carve from that, trying to copy it almost. Doesn't work for everything, but these lips, it seems to work really well, and sort of like more complex carvings I think works well as well with when you're starting carving sort of like arms and legs. But as we sort of like get to these kind of parts, sort of the more detailed parts, I will look at sort of two-dimensional carvings just to have a look at the minute details. And what I mean by minute details, I might be looking at the model in the top right hand corner, and the top lip just sort of seems to come out and up, whereas the bottom lip sort of seems to go up and then curve around a little bit. And also sort of like in the corner of the mouth, it seems to disappear into the skin. So I'm aware of all of these kind of things. So I think with carving wood, it's really good to have these references, just sort of like you can double check on them as you're going along. And as you can see here, I am getting that convex on the top lip by using those diamond wheel burrs. Now I'm putting links in the description for all of the burrs that you see. These are actually quite cheap. They're from Amazon, and I've found them very, very useful for these kind of details like this. I also use it to put the line in to the lip as well. The middle line I'm meaning. And I'm just sort of like shaping that middle part of the lip, giving it a little bit of a bulge there. And as you know, these videos do take a long time to make. I usually spend around about probably one whole day making the carving and the video, and then uploading and putting it all on YouTube. So if you could hit that like, I would really appreciate that if you're finding it useful, and leave me a comment if you want to know more about that clay carving, because I'm kind of unsure if you guys want to know about that. But I do find it very, very useful. So we are just sort of like using a Cutzel sphere burr here, and I'm just sort of like trying to get the fine tuning on this at the moment. Now this wood is cedar and it's really, really soft, so sometimes I'll do sort of like fine details and I'll slow the Dremel down maybe to around about 25,000 RPM. It just makes it a little bit less aggressive, and so you can sort of get those little areas. Now I'm extending that mouth just a little bit, and I want to put at the end of that line a little bit of a hole. If you can remember back to that photo, there is that sort of like the lips kind of disappear into the skin. I'm not sure if I was quite successful in doing this, but it kind of looked quite natural in the end. And I think it's always good to put contrast into your carvings. So what I've gone for here is a really smooth skin, but the kind of roughness of the lips, not too rough, but just a little bit to catch the light and make it look different from the skin. You can sort of see the grain there working with it as well. So I just wanted to put in a few lines, and I'm using a, what is that? It's a drill bit. A very tiny drill bit, but you can use sort of like one of those mushroom burrs, and sort of put in lines, not all the way up and down, sort of go down halfway and then join sort of like the bottom of the lip all over the kind of place. So you don't want it too uniform, and you don't want it all over as well. You can sort of like tone it back a bit with a diamond burr. That's what I'm doing there. And also once I sand it all, it takes kind of the rough parts away as well. And here is the final carving. The grain looks awesome. I haven't put oil on it or anything. Quite like it how it is. So next week we are carving this gargoyle with his beer belly, showing a lot of middle-aged angst there because he's, well, got a big beer belly. Right, we'll see you next week.